Hi everyone, it's Jen. I'm just here to do a quick review and recap of the books that I read during the first half of January. The first book I read was Walk on Earth, a Stranger by Rae Carson. This is a young adult sort of historical fantasy novel that is set in America during the California Gold Rush. So the main character is a girl named Leah Westfall, or Lee, who has the magical ability to sort of sense where gold is and helps her find it, which is great during the gold rush. So basically, Lee sets out to California as part of a wagon train to go find gold and ends up having to keep her identity a secret, disguising herself as a boy and trying to hide her powers so no one can abuse them or try to control her powers. And I thought it was a pretty interesting book. I thought it was going to be a lot more fantasy than historical fiction, and it seemed like at the end there was a lot still left to come. I felt that the story it was very Oregon Trail and not very magical gold rush, which is more what I was expecting, but I didn't realize it is the first book in a trilogy. Overall, I liked the book. I haven't read a lot of historical fiction set during the gold rush, so that was a very nice change of pace. Although I really wanted Lee to use her magical powers more and for that to be a larger part of the story, although I anticipate that it will be in the future books of the trilogy. So overall, I give this book 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Winter by Marissa Meyer. Winter is the 4th and final book in the Lunar Chronicles series, which is sci-fi adaptations of classic fairy tales. So Winter is the 4th book in the series. The others are Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and she also wrote a companion novel, Ferris, which is about the evil queen who is the bad guy in the book. The fairy tale that Winter is based off of is Snow White. Winter is a princess on Luna, and she is more beautiful than the queen, Lavanna, so she has a huntsman try to kill her, and has all of those classic fairy tale elements that you'd expect. I did not like this book as much as I was expecting to. It felt like Winter and her love interest weren't really the central characters in this novel, as much as Cinder, Scarlet, and Cress were the central characters in their novels. I think by this point, there were too many couples that we were focusing on, which is fine. I loved seeing the other couples. I loved them in their stories. But I wanted to know more about Winter, and this book didn't give me as much about her as I thought it would. Also, the world building in this book wasn't the strongest. Out on Luna, it seems like there's a sort of Hunger Games situation going on in that all the people are divided into different districts, really isolated from one another. It also is a little bit ridiculous to me that Lavanna is this big villain, and everyone on Earth, and all the world leaders on Earth agree that something needs to be done, someone needs to stop her. But the only people who are gonna do anything are teenagers? I don't know. It just seemed a little far-fetched to me, and I would have liked to see maybe some more people on Earth try to help out if everyone hates her so much and can see what a terrible dictator she is. I liked this novel. I thought it was a good conclusion to the Lunar Chronicles, although I did have some issues with the pacing. It was a really long book, over 800 pages. I didn't realize because I read it as an ebook, but man, it was long. And I just wanted more. We did get satisfactory resolutions to all the little love stories that have happened over the past few books, but I was a little underwhelmed, so 3 out of 5 stars. Another book I read this month was American Housewife by Helen Ellis. This is a collection of short stories about American housewives, so they all are told from a female point of view and set in a sort of modern America. All of the narrators were relatable, and all of the stories had this sort of dark, bizarre twist to them that I really appreciated, because it was a little unexpected. Although, if you look at the cover of this book, you can see she doesn't look like your typical American housewife, and these weren't stories about your typical American housewife either. There are 12 short stories in this collection, and some of them are longer than others. There were a few that were only 2 or 3 pages, and then some that were about 20 pages. Okay. My 3 favorite short stories in here were Dumpster Diving with the Stars. The narrator for that one was an author who had published one novel a couple years ago that was a cult classic and was using this reality program, Dumpster Diving with the Stars, to sort of revive her career. I really enjoyed this short story because I watch a lot of reality television. After I edit and upload this video, I'm going to be watching last night's episode of The Bachelor. I also am a big fan of the television show Unreal, which shows the darker side of reality television and sort of how producers manipulate people to get the responses they want for television. So this story really spoke to that little behind-the-scenes reality TV world, and I loved that. Another favorite of mine was My Novel is Brought to You by the Good People at Tampax. There were a lot of pop culture references in that short story as well as throughout the rest of the novel. The main character is writing a novel, and it's sponsored by Tampax, the tampon company, so it got progressively weirder and weirder, and I really liked it. It was fun. The writing style varies from story to story. Some are very sort of straightforward. One is told through an exchange of emails. There are 2 short stories where it's just sort of one character speaking the entire time. Overall, all of them I really enjoyed. I thought this tied together really well, and it was a great read. Definitely check it out. 4 out of 5 stars. Another book that I read this month was Radiance by Catherine M. Valente. I wanted to like this book so much more than I did. Just the description of the book makes it sound really cool and unique, so I'll read it to you. Radiance is a deco-punk pulp sci-fi alt-history space opera mystery set in a Hollywood and solar system very different from our own. That is a cool tagline. I want to read that book. And I did. The book focuses on the disappearance of Severin Unk, who was a filmmaker in this alt-history 1940s Hollywood space world. She vanished during the making of one of her films, and it's not really made very clear at the beginning of the novel why she vanished, what happened, and the story is told in such a way that made it confusing and frustrating to read, at least for me. It's not a straightforward narrative, which is fine, but it felt like an experiment in clever writing, and I just couldn't get on board. There were multiple narrators throughout the story. It was told from the point of view of one of Severin's stepmothers, an exit interview with her boyfriend, transcripts of her father talking to his screenwriter about making a film about Severin's disappearance. Another part was a sort of film noir private investigator looking into her disappearance. So there was a lot going on, and there was a lot to keep track of, and I felt like I was not the audience for this book. I feel that other people will enjoy this book much more than I did, but I'm glad I gave it a chance, because it was really cool. It just maybe wasn't for me. So overall, I give this book 3 out of 5 stars, although definitely check it out for yourself if you're thinking of reading it, because I feel that everyone will experience this book differently. This month, I finally got around to reading Colorless Tsuru Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. As I said in a previous video, I've had this book for over a year and finally decided to get around to reading it. I like the cover to this book, but it's even prettier when you take the dust jacket off. So it has all of the train stations in Tokyo. I'm assuming it looks like a little metro map, which is very fitting considering the main character in this novel is a designer of train stations in Tokyo. And I also think it's a nice reminder that the book was translated from Japanese. So Murakami is a famous Japanese novelist. I have actually not read any of his books before. I've only read some of his short stories like The Strange Library and selections from After the Quake. And I enjoyed this book, although it wasn't everything I wanted it to be. One of the most important things in the main character in this book's life was the group of very close friends that he had when he was in high school. When the book starts, he's now in his 30s and he's entering a new relationship, and the woman he's dating can sense that there's something about him that is sort of inhibiting him emotionally. So he goes back to visit these friends who sort of kicked him out of their group when he was in college. I wanted to know what he had done to get kicked out of the group, where he had gone wrong, and they reveal it pretty early in the story, but it's never really fully explained more. They don't really go into more depth about why they believed it then or what actually had happened. So there were really two sort of mysteries tied to why he was kicked out of the group that were never really addressed. And there were other hanging plot threads that were left unresolved that made me anxious. I was getting to the end of the book, and I'm about here, and I'm like, I don't think that there's time for all of this to be resolved, which is when I realized that it wasn't going to be, and it was going to be a mature adult book in that manner. The novel's told from a first-person point of view, so it was interesting to see how the main character viewed himself, and then when he went to talk to his high school friends, how they had viewed him in high school and how they viewed him now, as it was totally different. I really liked this book, and I definitely think that I am going to pick up more of Murakami's works. Alright, I hope you enjoyed these reviews. If you've read any of these books, please comment below and tell me what you thought. I'm always excited to hear what other people think about books. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my book reviews in the future. I'll have another January wrap-up coming up at the end of January. I still have a few books on my to-read shelf that I'm going to finish soon, I promise. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!